Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the disability meeting for June 2021. Representing the PBA,
Joe Alejandro.
Eddie Caballero.
DEA,
Kenny Sparks. Jeffrey Wood by invitation.
SBA,
Anthony Borelli.
LBA,
Luke Turco is here with the CEA at our conference room.
okay, and CEA. Chris Monahan.
Chris Monahan.
Commissioner of Finance,
Phil Dukes for Finance Commissioner Sharif Suleiman.
Mayor,
Cynthia Collins, designee for Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Comptroller,
Susanna Vickers, designee for Controller Scott Stringer.
John Dorso, alternate trustee for Controller Scott Stringer.
Police Commissioner,
Stephanie Zimberg, representing Commissioner Shea.
representing the Law Department,
Marta Ross, Law Department, by invitation.
okay, the Actuary,
Carrie Chancellor, Actuary, present by invitation.
Keith Snow, Office of the Actuary, present by invitation.
Damian, are you on?
Damian Law, DOF Legal by invitation.
Nick Sifuni,
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Good morning. Nick Sifuni, present as counsel for the CEA, LBA, SBA, and DEA.
Gary,
Gary DeRosa, SBA, present by invitation.
Mark? Okay, so going around the room,
Sergeant Mike Reeves, Medical Division, present by invitation.
Police Officer Tricia Waller, present by invitation.
go down here, John,
Oh, sorry, John Flynn, Police Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Stanley Thomas, Police Pension Fund, present by invitation. Vincent Diaz, Police Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Claudia Monte, Police Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Angelo Transitlus, Pension Fund by invitation.
Ann Fernando, Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Chris Holloran, Pension Fund, present by invitation,
Bob Saskisted, Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Nicole Jambrisi, Police Pension Fund, present by invitation.
Chris McGrath, PBA by invitation.
Rod Shaw, PBA, by invitation.
okay, anyone that I missed?
Mark Marino, present by invitation. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay,
David Morris, PBA, present by invitation.
Kevin, it's Marta. I just want to make sure that Sharon was heard before, that she is present by invitation. Sharon?
We didn't hear her. We didn't hear her.
yeah, we can't hear her.
Sharon Stiffel.
Looks like she's muted.
She might be muted, but she is present by invitation.
Okay. All right, with that, Joe?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Page 1, to accept the minutes of the previous meeting, Wednesday, May 12, 2021. And to confirm the next meeting date, Wednesday, July 14, 2021. All right. I'd like to so move pages 2 through 14.
Nothing of the controversial nature, Joe, will so move it.
Thank you, Kenny. We'll so move pages 2 through 14. Next, page 15 regarding resolution on fiscal year 2020 police pension fund budget.
Okay, Stanley?
Morning.
Stanley!
Good morning, everyone. Based on our previous few meetings that we had for the budget, we're just coming to the board today if we could vote to pass the resolution for the 2022 budget. The amount for the administrative budget for that year is $23,515,061. And the budget that we're requesting for the COP 2.0 budget, the project is $9,362,000 for a total for fiscal year 2022 budget in the amount of $32,877,61. Thank you.
So, I'd like to support that.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
I, as the mayor's designee, will second that budget and want to thank Stanley and the staff and Kevin and everybody for working so diligently on putting this together this year. And we appreciate all your hard work, and I second the motion to approve the budget.
Okay, thank you so much, and so moved.
Thank you. Page 16, regarding resolution extending the group life insurance plan for the members of the police pension fund through June 2022.
All right, this is our yearly resolution, which extends the group life insurance plan, the first $50,000, which is not subject to tax, on the death of a member. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept that.
Second. Thank you.
Okay, so moved.
Hey, if we can just go back a second, I just want to note for the record that the Comptroller's Office concurs with the vote on the budget in order to fulfill the statutory requirement.
Sure. Okay, thank you, John.
I just wanted to note that on the record. Thank you.
Okay. Page 17, regarding resolution extending controller as custodian of the funds. So John, question from the PBA, there's been no changes since the last resolution, correct?
Joe, there has been no changes since the last resolution.
Okay. So I make a motion to extend the controller's authority as custodian of the funds through September 30th, 2021.
Do we have a second? Danny?
Second.
Okay.
Who seconded? Sorry.
DEA. Ken Swartz, DEA.
Okay. Next is a memorandum. Yep, I'm sorry. Next is a memorandum regarding reimbursement of fiscal year 2020 net costs for implementing Chapter 41 of the laws of 2016.
Good morning, everybody. Does the board want me to pull it up, or should I just give a verbal presentation?
Yep,
Sherry, if you could pull it up, that'd be great.
Okay, I need access to share my screen, please. All right. Does everyone see the memo in front of them?
We can see your screen.
Okay.
If you can maybe just make it a little bit bigger.
Sure thing. So this resolution is for the executive director to seek reimbursement from the state. This has to do with the military service that was purchased under Chapter 41 of the laws of 2016. Each member can purchase up to 3 years. Does not matter where the service was served, as different than previous law. So this shows you, this chart right here shows you that in the fiscal year 2020, 158 members purchased service. In total, they purchased 339 years. And the gross liability was 9.1 million, but they were responsible for paying part of the purchase, and they paid approximately 1.3 million. So the net cost that we're seeking, the police pension fund should be seeking reimbursement from the state for, is approximately 7.9 million. I do want to note that this, since the laws of 2016, since this law has passed, there has not been a reimbursement to the city. And if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see on the bottom of the page that the cumulative amounts since this law has passed that the city has not been reimbursed is approximately $87 million with interest through the end of this fiscal year. The other thing I would note is that these years of purchase is about double the previous years. That probably has to do with the increased retirement that happened in the summer of 2020. So there is a resolution on the next page.
So Sherry, I just want to ask, it's Joe Alejandro.
Yeah.
In your memo, it says that your calculations are based on the 2021 fiscal year I believe, assumptions and methods
Right.
in calculating this. Does that include the 6.8% assumption rate?
This was for fiscal year 20, so it includes a 7% interest rate.
I'm sorry?
This is for fiscal year 20, so it includes the 7% interest rate.
So it's based on a 7% assumption rate.
Yes.
It's Sherry, in the memo.
Just identify yourself.
Yeah, this is Raj from the PBA. In the memo, it says that the calculation is based on the actual assumptions that the actuary proposed in determining the final fiscal year 21 employer contributions dated January 6th, 2021. So can you walk us through what of those assumptions are utilized in this calculation and what haven't been utilized?
So this, it's part of actuarial standards that we must disclose the assumptions used. So it is the 2021 A&M sets of assumptions used, but because the effective date of the 2021 A&M is for 2021, and because this analysis is for fiscal year 2020, none of those are actually applicable for that time period.
Don't understand that. It makes sense to me. Can you walk that back again? I'm just trying to figure out. So are you using newer assumptions and methods, or using older assumptions and methods in order to come up with your calculation?
It's effectively using the previous set of assumptions, because the 2021 A&Ms do not become effective until after the cutoff for this analysis. So it is using the previous sets of assumptions because the 2021 is not effective for this fiscal year.
Then why wouldn't that be noted in the memo and say that assumptions and methods that aren't being utilized for this calculation are utilized for the calculation?
Because when even the 2021 A&Ms, they do say that it's based off of the previous set of assumptions, because the 2021 A&Ms doesn't change everything that was in place previously. So the previous set was 2019 A&Ms, which this board adopted the, updated retirement tables. They did updated disability tables and a lot of assumptions in that set. So the 2021 A&Ms is on top of the 2019 A&Ms, but it doesn't change everything though. And the rest of it is in place.
This doesn't make sense to me, but all right.
Okay. Explain it again. So 2019 was a package of changes that had, mortality changes in there. It had disability rates and service retirements and overtime changes in there. It had a lot of changes in there. So then comes 2021 A&M. 2021 A&M doesn't revamp the entire A&M package. It just has specific changes to it that's layered on to the 2019 A&M. And moreover, the 2021 A&M doesn't become effective until the fiscal year 21. And this analysis is for 2020. So everything that is in 2021 is still effective for the previous years.
Sherry, it's Susanna.
Yes.
So just to confirm, this analysis, because it's for you, what you're presenting now is for 2020. And so the changes that have been debated over the past couple of months don't apply to this. They only apply to calculations for fiscal year 21 forward.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that 2021 includes pieces of the 2019 A&M. So that's why those pieces don't change for 2021. But yes, what you're saying is correct. This analysis is for fiscal year 2020 that you see on the top of this page. And
okay, I'll say the sort of controversial elements that we've been discussing do not apply to this calculation.
Right.
This calculation is based on the previously agreed to assumptions and methods. that have been used over the past couple of years.
Yes.
Okay,
Sherry? Great.
Yes.
Suzanne, I appreciate that, and that was very helpful. But I have a question now that's now outstanding here to me is, Sherry, those prior assumptions and methods, I believe, and law department can check into that, there was a vote by the Board of Trustees to accept those assumptions and methods and changes.
For
Correct?
2000,
Yes, 2019, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
There was.
Yes.
All right. And I want that to resonate here, because that's going to come up again in the next few resolutions and questions I have for you. Okay? So I understand what you're saying here, that you've used the prior assumptions and methods, which was voted on by this board, in order to for you to do your calculations. Okay? Now, I make a motion to vote on this memorandum. I believe this, I don't know if there's a resolution to that effect, or we're gonna have to wait until after, but as pursuant to all of the prior votes that we have had over the last 2 decades on these methods and these calculations. So I make a motion to vote on this issue. Utilizing, thank you, and whether to utilize the current assumptions and methods, the prior assumptions and methods, which was voted on by this board, in order to use it in the calculation going forward regarding reimbursement for this Chapter 41 of the laws of 2016. So there's a second on that?
Is there a second? Okay, Kenny Sparks, DEA, second.
So I'd like a roll call vote. I'd like a roll call vote on this.
DBA?
DBA votes no.
DEA? No. SBA?
No.
LBA? LBA?
Oh, LBM, I'm gonna abstain.
CEA?
Abstain.
Commissioner of Finance?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Controller? Controller? Police Commissioner?
Yes.
Was it controller?
Just waiting on the controller. I'm guessing they're having a conversation.
Yeah, and Joe, just to confirm, we're voting on the liability, the bill that we're going to send to the state asking for reimbursement, correct?
Correct. The motion on the table is the Chapter 41 reimbursement.
Right, to ask the state to reimburse the city the money
So-
that's already paid for this.
All right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So the controller's office votes yes on the reimbursement.
So there's not enough votes.
Okay, the motion. I'm sorry?
So we vote yes on the Chapter 41 reimbursement. I'm sorry, we were both having a problem unmuting.
Okay, but the motion does not carry.
So can I ask a technical question? The motion doesn't carry. Does that mean that PPF will not be sending a bill to the state to reimburse the city for these amounts?
Correct.
No, one second. I believe that it will be based on the prior request for reimbursement based on the older methods,
So,
not on the newer assumptions and methods which she recalculated it on.
I think I would need the law department to weigh in, but the board, So the statute, RSSL 1000, which is what Chapter 41 modified, requires that a voucher be prepared for reimbursement to the state because they enhanced the method for a military buyback. So because the board didn't certify the amount in the voucher, we can't submit the voucher to the state. So maybe your request is to ask for a new calculation of a voucher for us to
That's what
certify.
my next step will be. It will be based on a calculation, recalculation based on the older assumptions and methods, which was voted on by this board going forward.
So Joe, does that mean we need a motion on the floor to request that the actuary recalculate this?
And we are thinking alike on that.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, 1 second, Sherry. The board is speaking right now about this. So the issue now I have is then that should be brought forward, and it should be a request of the Board of Trustees to the actuary to recalculate this and utilize the older assumptions and methods which had been voted on by this board in 2019.
March
I believe
13th, 2019.
March 13, 2019.
I guess
Nicole?
so if I wasn't clear before, the numbers don't change because they're the same set of assumptions.
But that's not what the resolution implies.
Right.
I can change the wording of the resolution if you want, but the numbers don't change.
Well, then we need the wording change, and we'd also need the backup to show that there has not been any change to that as a result of the utilization of the older assumptions and methods. So the faster that could get done, then the board can address that.
So can I just ask a question just so I'm clear on this? The Chapter 41 resolution that's in is based on a number other than the 7%?
No, it's based on 7%.
Right. John, and I believe we clarified this. Ms. Chan used the older assumptions and methods from 2019, which this board voted on, in making her calculation. All we said was we're not accepting this based on the 2000. She put down in her memo that this is based on proposed changes to the actuarial assumptions and methods dated January 6, 2021. She has stated to us there would be no change in the actual request, the voucher request. As a result, if she modifies that wording, that it's all based on the prior assumptions and methods from 2019, and that she shows that there is no change in the actual numbers, and we can see, through backup or whatever, then we can vote on this and be fully informed in our vote going forward.
Could we have Nicole or Sherry, could you do that on the fly so that maybe we can address this at this board meeting?
So I can absolutely
perhaps provide a statement, stating that these numbers are not based on any of the 2020 proposed numbers that were included in that more recent memo, to allay the concerns of some of the board members about how these numbers were arrived at.
I can change the resolution right now in real time. I think Joe also had a request to amend the memo, however, which I can't do.
Well, that's
why I asked if Barry could just make a statement on the record clarifying that so that that alleviates the concerns of some of the board members.
One more question I have, and I appreciate that, Cindy, is Sherry, is there a timing issue with regards to redoing this with what we have just spoken about?
Well, in the past, we have wanted to submit this before the state's end of the fiscal year, which obviously is March 31st. But as I presented earlier, since the passage of this law in 2016, the state has never reimbursed the city. So, based on that, I don't know if there is any urgency.
Okay. So why don't we as soon as possible, get this redone, and then the board can consider it, maybe even at the SIM, and then we can get it passed.
Just to clarify the record, this motion failed, and there'll be a new resolution at the SIP.
That's fine with because we'll have it. We could address it in our caucus at the SIM. So
With any amendments to the memo.
With any amendments to the memo. So, all right, so the next issue, is that okay with everybody?
That's fine with me, Joe.
Okay, Susanna?
That's fine.
Okay. Next one is the pages 22 through 31, a memorandum regarding finalization of transferable earnings skim from police to the POVSF as of June 30th, 2019. Sherry, would you like to walk us through that one?
Yes. You see the screen with the memo? Now you do?
Now we do. If you make it larger, it'd be helpful.
Okay. So this is to close out 2019 with the final amounts for the skim. For POVSF, the police officers VSF, we initially calculated the transfer to be 108 million, and 8 million of which was transferred.
Wait,
We would have to go into session.
this is the QPP to both VSFs, right, Sherry?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
This is for.
Well, she's just explaining it, and then we have to vote on it. We have to go into the.
Well, there's 3 resos.
Right, well, I have to get out of the police pension, vet VSF. They would have to go into the Superior's VSF, and then we'd have to make a motion at the end of theirs to go back into public session of the police pension fund.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. So for the police pension fund to transfer into the POVSF, the initial skim was calculated to be 108 million, 8 million of which was transferred, and the final skim was calculated to be 123.6 million approximately. So the transfer amount that needs to be made is the difference between the 123.6 and the 8 million already transferred, which is 115.6 million approximately. On the PSO VSF side, the police superiors officer, the initial skim was 311 million, 279 million of which was already transferred. The final amount was calculated to be approximately 314 million. So the difference of that and what already was transferred remains to be transferred is the 35 million.
So this VSF, any changes? Sherry, can I ask, well, these are issues that she, who introduced these for you at the board, this memo?
PBD.
I'm sorry?
PBD.
PBD. Who's that?
To be determined.
Oh, so you don't know, to be determined. So no one on the board right now has introduced this. Okay.
Joe, when the time is right, I will be introducing these, but I thought that there was an issue that we needed to be in the VSFs to actually vote on them.
There's 3. This one gets voted on in the QPT, then the next one gets voted on in the POVSF board, and then the next one gets voted on in the PSO VSF board.
So the mayor's office would be introducing these different resolutions.
Okay. Second on this, all right. That's helpful. Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
With regards to this, can you explain which assumptions and methods you relied on, Sherry, in making this calculation?
These are off of the 2021 AMs.
So this is 2021 for the 2019 transfer.
This actually, because one of the reasons why the fiscal year 19 skims are being finalized right now is because it is based on an ABO gate, which those are based off of the valuation. So these are based off of the 2021 A&Ms, which include the changes that I proposed in January.
So unlike the prior assumptions and methods from the prior resolution we were looking at, the 2021 assumptions and methods have not been voted on by this board. And that's what you're relying on?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. I'd like we could just do a roll call vote on this.
I do want to make one. Sorry, before you proceed.
One second. I'd like to request a roll call vote on this, given the fact that we have not voted on the assumptions and methods from 2021. We have voted on all assumptions and methods all prior to with all the actuaries. So I request that vote.
Before the vote takes place, I just want to provide information so the board is voting on information that they are aware of.
Just one second. One second. Right, and the other thing is the mayor has to officially introduce the resolution when we go into the proper form.
Just for clarification, we never voted as a board on the assumptions and methods, correct? It was tabled and then it was withdrawn.
We have not voted on the 2021, John, is my recollection. We've not voted on the 2021 proposed assumptions and methods. As the actuary stated prior, she did her calculation on the prior item based on assumptions and methods from 2019, which we did vote on.
Right, and my
Okay, I just wanted to
understanding, Joe,
clarify.
too, is, and John, we have never discussed Sherry's recommended. Maybe we ought to flip the order here, and we ought to go to the agenda item where we actually do discuss the suggested employer contributions, where the suggested change to the AIR is, just to make things a little bit less cumbersome, because I think the employer contribution for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22, and those discussions would inform this vote. And so it might make things go a little smoother. I just don't know if we could flip that, the order. That's just potentially a suggestion, because this has not been discussed at all at this board.
Well, yeah, I would propose this, Cindy, as we have an order of the memos as been put on the agenda. We may have a very discussion regarding the assumptions and methods, and I don't know if they would even be helpful with regards to the skim requests to the variable supplements. I think we can probably get through those and then have that longer argument after.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't know, because we keep coming back to the rate. So that was my only thought. But I'm fine.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So, Joe, the thing that I wanted to note was that for the VSFs that hit the that don't hit the ABO gate, what assumptions has no relevance on it. So, for example, PSO VSF, the Police Superiors Officers VSF, they are not capped, and so their numbers are purely just the skim amount from the comptroller's office, which has no bearing. Whichever assumptions have no bearing on that cap, on the, it
Right.
doesn't change their numbers. I just want to note that.
So you're saying that the 2021 assumptions and methods have no bearing on the ABO gate?
They have no bearing for the VSF that are not capped by the ABO.
So what portion of the SCIM is controlled by the ABO?
So the PO VSF, for the police officers, they are hitting the cap, but for PSO, they're not capped by the ABO, so their numbers don't change.
Their numbers don't change, but police does.
Correct. Police officers do. Police superior officers don't.
By how much does police officers change?
I would have to redo that calculation.
Okay, and Sherry, just a question, because I don't have the memorandums in front of me and the type is small anyways. In your memorandum, do you include language referring to the 2020, 2021, or 2022 valuations as, or is that the way you did in the chapter 41, or is that language out of those memos?
It's in the memo.
So that same language that was objectionable to some members of this board are in all these memos as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So, Sherry, I'd like you to recalculate what portion of the police officers variable supplement fund which is affected by the ABO gate. I'd like to hear from you with regards to that.
Okay, I can, restate them on the previous basis or whatever assumption and that are in effect.
What? Can we have that also by the SIM?
Considering the SIM is a week from today, no.
Okay. How long do you think you would need?
I can produce them later on this summer.
Okay. Why don't we do that for the police officers variable supplement?
Joe, this is
Yeah.
Turco. I have a question on our vote here with the variable supplement fund. If I'm not mistaken, we're voting on like the $34 million portion of that. The other portion got put in already.
I'm sorry, can you state that again? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's choppy.
Can I ask a time question for a second? Does a request from the board supersede a fiscal note from an outside party from a timing standpoint? I'm just, because what I'm afraid of is if this goes too far into the summer and then we have to make a payment, if the systems, or I should say the BSFs, come back and ask for interest.
Yeah.
So I just want to protect the fund from having to pay interest to a BSF because we're waiting on a calculation. So I just want to ask from the standpoint of a request that comes from the board to save us potentially from transferring money with interest versus I know that there's a tremendous amount of requests that come in for fiscal notes. I just want to see where this fits in because our obligations to this board, and I just want to understand the timeline.
Can anybody address that? Hold on, we have someone who's going to address that.
Just based on my experience previously, whenever it's Stanley from Police Pension Fund. Just based on my experience, whenever there is a delay in that payment, we have had interest charged, and it was transferred to the VSS. So to John's point, there would be a possibility of interest being transferred to the VSS if the payments are delayed.
Now, the only thing I understand, Sherry, is that with regard to the superior officers, that it's not implicated because there is no gate ABO gate on them. This is a request for further information with regards to the police variable supplement fund, which the portion that's not affected by the ABO gate, you're going to look at recalculating.
Correct.
Right, and are we going to correct or edit the memorandum, Sherry, taking out the references to the revised methods to, as I said, allay certain board members' concerns?
Yeah, when I recalculate the skims, the memo will be reflective of the assumptions and methods used in it.
Okay, but that you included the language referring to your new calculations. I'm just asking if that will be removed from both the Superior as well as the police officer's memo.
So whatever I recalculate and whatever assumptions and methods are used there, I would disclose it in the memo, yes.
Okay. All right, so in order to vote on this, I think I have to move from the police pension fund.
Well, no. I think what we first have to do is vote on this.
Right. To go into the general?
And then from there.
But we can't vote on the general because she's going to recalculate.
You can't vote on the others.
I can't vote on the one with police, but they can vote on the superiors.
They cannot. So we had this issue a few years ago.
Right.
There's 3 resos.
Okay.
So the first reso is the skim off of the QPP
Right.
into the 2 VSF.
Right.
And you asked her to recalculate that, which means, I think following what we did with the other one, this resolution will be withdrawn and a new one will be introduced.
That's
Since
fine.
that resolution is being withdrawn, the other 2 resolutions are to accept the money that's being skimmed off. And since there isn't a resolution to approve the skim out, there's nothing to accept.
And we just got on the record that if there is an implication with interest paid, it will be paid at a later date. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so given that, then I request that we withdraw these memorandums with regards to the VSS until that recalculation is done. And then we will address it at the appropriate time with a vote.
Do we want to have a date by which those calculations will be made, considering the board will be paying interest?
Probably August.
Yeah, well, Sherry, is there any way that we could get you a commitment from you that we would be able to have those numbers for the July board meeting, especially given the fiscal potential impact of the interest payments? I think, is there any way that you could have those numbers for us by the July board meeting?
I can't commit to that right now. I have to talk to my staff to understand the workload. We do have obviously priorities that we're dealing with too, but I can guarantee that'll be, if it's not, July, it'll be probably August.
Well, could you confirm it would definitely be August, not probably August?
It will be. If it's not July, then it'll be August.
Okay, thank you.
Luchuk, wait, may I have a quick question? Just so I understand this. The part of the variable supplement fund that has to do with the superior officers. Sherry, if I'm hearing you correctly, those numbers are not going to change because
Correct.
we haven't hit the whatever the word you're using over there. We haven't hit the top. So, so we can't vote on that because we didn't vote on the beginning. Am I hearing that right now, Nicole? We can't vote on this yet, even though our numbers aren't going to change.
That is correct. So the law department opined on this a few years ago. I'm looking for it now. I want to say it was like 2 or 3 years ago. The CEA asked to parse out so that the PSO-VSS could vote to accept the skim, and the law department opined that you couldn't break it out in the skim off of the QPP. So when that one was tabled, it tabled the acceptance to both the PO-VSS and the PSO-VSS.
But we do have on the record that when it does get done, it will be paid with interest on that. Correct?
Okay.
Okay, So then those memorandums are pulled off the table at this point until the recalculations are done. Pages 58 through 64, fiscal year final 2021 employer contribution to police.
So again, I don't know if you want to see the memo or not.
Sure, I would like to see the memo.
All right, need access, please. Okay, so the final 2021 employer contributions were calculated to be the 2.5 billion approximately that you see. This does represent a $37.3 million decrease from the preliminary 2021 amounts.
Okay. Is that it?
I can answer any questions, but yes, there is a memo in front of you that does detail these contributions and the amount. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is this all based on the 2021 assumptions and methods that you proposed?
Yes.
Okay. And that results in a savings, you're saying?
Correct. It's the $37.3 million savings. It does correspond to, do you see a switch screen? Do you see another page?
Yes, I do.
So it does represent, the decrease that was projected in January that was given to this board based on the assumptions and methods package. It was calculated to be 37.6 million approximately, and you'll see on the final 21 employer contribution memo, it was calculated to be 37.3 million.
Can you go back to the second page?
So this.
Yeah, and Joe, I had a question for Sherry. Sherry, just to clarify, all these calculations you have said are a package, so they're different components and none of the components can be broken out from one or the other. So
Correct.
Either it's like an all or nothing. Either we accept all your modifications or the package doesn't go through. And
well, there is a third option, which obviously is if the 7% is retained, then a new package can be developed that obviously balances everything out, including the other pieces of the 2021 A&M that was introduced.
So then those might have different numbers than what you're showing us right now.
Correct, yes.
Because just from a math perspective, the the interest rate going up or staying where it is and not being lowered, you would think that would provide a savings versus intuitively. Correct. I'm just trying to understand the math here. Okay,
well, Cindy, from a math perspective, when you're looking at the actuary's memo that's on the screen right now, because of the one-shots that are included in this package, there is a savings in the near term, but there's a really real cost going out into the out years. So I just would remind all of the board members, we're talking about a $37.6 million savings, I put in quotes if you guys could see me, for this year. But then when you start going to 23, 24, and 25, there's a real substantial cost to this package because, of the one-shot things that are included in the package.
But to answer Cindy's question, Cindy's initial question was the directional change of, the discount rate. So I just wanted to answer your question, Cindy, that yes, the higher the discount rate is, the lower the liability is, which does push cost down the road. If you're not putting in as much upfront and you're not meeting your investment returns down the road, then you will be putting in more money at the end without the compound interest effect, so that it does cost the pension plan more money at the end if you're not reflecting your discount rate correctly.
So let me ask this question. Let me just frame this for my understanding. So you save approximately 65 million the first 2 years of your projections. All right. And then there is approximately nearly 300 million in costs, increased costs over the next 3 years of your projection. That does not include the outer years of that projection. It could be in maybe over $1 billion.
So
or with all the other systems too.
So there's 3 points that I would make in regards to your question. One is that these are not on a present value basis. So these numbers are stated as of the fiscal year. So this does include inflation in it. So and the growth rate, obviously. So it's not just, the sum of these two numbers right here. Secondly, as stated in this memo that was given to the board in January, there are pieces that has taken place after the date of this, the as of date, the calculation measurement date of this analysis that do include gains, because we obviously have had gains since the close of fiscal year 19. And those aren't included in here, which obviously will make the out years not as high. And the salary, assumptions that weren't realized during the pandemic, those savings also aren't included here. And that's stated very explicitly in this memo.
Sherry, can I ask a question on what you just said?
Thirdly, sorry, just to finish my thought. Thirdly, the other item is that these don't keep increasing. There was shown a 5-year projection because, part of the package does extend to that time period, but it does level off.
So can I ask a point of information?
Sure.
Sherry, if I heard you right, you said that this schedule doesn't include gains that the pension funds have accrued. My understanding is that this package that, you've always been very adamant that any changes are a package and that all of your recommendations are baked into the calculations that you made. So I thought that the reason why there's a decrease to the employer contributions in 21 and 22 is because the costs are offset by the pension restart that is part of your package. And the pension restart takes the gains that the pension funds have accrued and uses them in those years to offset the additional costs of lowering the AAR.
So all that is correct. Obviously, when you do an analysis, you need to do it in a point of time. So, this obviously was done in January. So, a lot has changed in January, as well as, the asset gains that you're talking that, you refer to that is part of this A&M package is the prior gain. So the smoothing methodology from before was 6-year smoothing. So you have 6 years worth of gains and losses that you're smoothing in, which obviously on a cumulative basis is a gain. So everything you've said is correct, that it does take into consideration past gains.
But I just want to, sort of point out to everybody, one thing that I find objectionable about that actuary's package of recommendations is that, right now we're sitting on huge gains to the pension funds. And as you can see from this chart, the actuary's proposal includes a pension restart that takes those gains and applies them to fiscal year 21 and 22, years in which we do not need additional money inserted into the city budget to reduce the city's contribution. Instead of banking those gains for, the out years when we may not be receiving generous federal stimulus and having really serious budget deficits. The package that we're being, I think, forced to try to live with takes the pension restart and uses it for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So this administration is getting extra money to spend in their last year in office, where that money could be saved for a year in which there's a more dire budget situation where we need the money when we don't need it now. So,
So
yeah.
Suzanne, I just want to clarify that your analysis is not completely accurate, because there are gains that are not being part of this.
I'm sorry, Joe, you're cutting out.
So
I was
Susanna?
just trying to clarify
Go ahead,
that
Sherry.
Susanna's point wasn't completely accurate, because the gains are not all being used. There are still gains on the table that I said will offset these latter years.
So Suzanne, it's Joe Alejandro.
Yeah.
I echo everything you have just said. I do find portions of this objectionable. I find also objectionable is that it's almost a seemingly, and for lack of a better term, almost underhanded way this has been put before the board with regards to a interpretation with assumptions and methods that has deviated quite dramatically from past practice in front of the boards. And that is that all assumptions and methods have come before this board with regards to prior actuaries and this actuary too. And they have come before the board, been talked about and voted on with many parties, including those in City Hall. It seems to me that we are deviating or being asked to deviate from past practice. And I've just got one question to the law department here. And I know you have difficulty going on your records because I don't know if you've been hacked or whatever. So maybe we could go on past memory here. Has there been any dramatic change in state legislation with regards to the laws that affect decisions by this board?
Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was having technical issues. The statutes have remained the same. If that's what you're
And they
asking.
have not-
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but the statutory scheme has not changed.
Good. So let me start with that. The statutory scheme has not changed. There's been no changes to the laws. And so I'm being and somewhat I've been told that essentially we're going to have to accept this and just deviate from past practice with regards to voting on all the various issues with regards to the actuary that have been brought before the board. And so I have a problem with the way this has been framed to this board, which is why today I've requested votes on everything, as has been traditionally done. And I am probably the most senior trustee in the city, sitting on the boards for nearly 22 years. So I today find not only what Suzanne has brought up objectionable, but I find objectionable the way this document or these issues have been brought before the board as though there was no vote needed at all.
And Joe, I thank you for saying that, because that, reminds me of something that, I've said at other boards that I want to repeat here. In past years, my understanding is that, all of the stakeholders, including trustees, the actuary, City Hall, City Council, all got together and agreed on big ticket changes, like a change to the AIR. And, this year, the actuary has been adamant about moving forward with a package that doesn't have broad support for all of the components of it. There are many assumption and method changes that are being proposed, and I think most trustees concur with the actuary on most of the recommended changes. And it's a shame that the board doesn't have the opportunity to, opine on those, and are being force-fed a package that has controversial elements that we can't separate out. The pension restart, as I mentioned earlier, is a big one that I think needs more discussion, as is the actuarial interest rate change, which has never been done without a strong city consensus. And I think before having discussions about changes, we need to have that consensus. There's a bill, only the legislature can change the AIR. And the only legislation that I'm aware of, I just want to update everyone, is a bill that was introduced at the behest of some city trustees to extend the AIR at 7% for another 2 years. And my understanding is that bill passed the Senate yesterday and is poised to pass the Assembly before the end of the week. So I would just like to, put on the record that the only legislation that is live right now is to extend the 7% going forward for 2 years. So it really behooves the board and all of our advisors to understand that the AIR is going to be 7% going forward, and we should take our actions according to the legal standard of 7%, not any other sort of fictional interest rate.
Suzanne, I agree with you 100%. And I've made my points here. I think this was framed in a way that was onerous to past practice, almost, in my opinion, in a way that it was arbitrary, almost capricious, in the way it's been put to the board, where there's been no discussion. And I could go through a history of going over to City Hall and meeting with high-level individuals with regards to any modification to assumptions and methods. It seems to me that a rock was taken to a delicate web of relationships here that I find hard to even justify, given what I've been told here. Plus, I'll add one even further. We've been asked to do this, and we have not even been given the backups that we have requested over time with regard to these things. So it's almost been asked to have an uninformed vote with these things, as I've argued about in the past. So today, I made a request that we do a roll call vote on whether to accept this final 20. By the way, before I do that, can anyone tell me what has been done at the other pension boards with regards to this request?
So Joe, at Teachers and Nicers, the actuaries' 21 final employer contribution was voted down, and a request was made to the actuary to recalculate the employer contribution at 7%. Fire hasn't acted yet, and BERS approved it.
Okay.
And BERS approved it back, my understanding, in January, February, but Susanna nor I sit on the BERS board, so we don't have firsthand knowledge of what occurred with BERS.
I want to respond to some comments that were made in terms of like forcing this board or, using arbitrary assumptions. That, I want to remind the board that the memos that we're looking at right now were dated in May. And for, reasons beyond my control, they were not put on the May board calendar. And having deliverables made in May means that my office is working on these in April, if not sooner than that. And as of April, these were the assumptions that were being discussed. I do not agree with the comments that the board has not had a chance to discuss this, because my memo to the board of these assumptions and method changes were delivered in January. And I have been made available to discuss at all times between then and now. So when these contributions were calculated earlier in Q1, early Q2, that these were the assumptions to the best of my knowledge at that time. And this legislation that Susanna brought up was not put before me, post of a fiscal note, until late last month. And so that was well after the contributions were calculated. And obviously the process of calculating contributions takes months, and coming up with a package also takes months. And so these were not done on, this is not forced to the board. I've never said that I would not be calculating contributions at 7%. Even earlier today, I agreed to redo some of these calculations at 7% with a well-balanced portfolio and package of assumptions and methods and changes. So I just want to state that on record.
Sherry, so let me ask a question then. It seems in your memo that some of this has already been instituted by OMB. Is that correct?
So that's an administrative question for the police pension fund. I don't, my duty and responsibility in the city obviously is to calculate these numbers. I don't administer any of the cash flow, and I don't administer or accept any kind of contribution payments.
So you're saying that police pension fund instituted this without authority of the board?
No,
so
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that.
Then what are you saying? I'm trying to figure out.
I think you're asking whether these contributions were actually made to police pension fund. And I was stating that my office does not, have any authority over cash flow from one agency to another. And we don't accept cash flow, we don't pay out money, and we don't manage money. So
I didn't ask that. I asked if any of this was worked on and has been instituted. These are your recommendations. Has any of it that you know of been instituted by OMB? That was my question, first one. You've implicated now police pension fund. I just want to know an answer from you. Do you know if OMB has taken any of your recommendations and utilized it?
And I was making the point that this is between OMB and police pension fund, that I don't get into, who sends money, who sends how much money, when do they send it, if it's been sent. That's not my responsibility.
Okay.
I don't oversee that.
That's an interesting response. Does anybody else know?
I would think that police pension fund would know whether they have money from OMB or not.
But I don't know how I could be clearer. Was that based on the assumptions and methods that we voted on? Or is it based on the assumptions and methods that you proposed that we have not voted on? If it's based on the assumptions and methods that we did not vote on, was any of it utilized by OMB and giving the money to whoever? That's all I want to know. Has it been instituted by OMB in any way, shape, or form?
Joe, are you asking me?
Yes. You would know. This is your recommendations. Who would you work with?
So I don't know how to be more clear to you. I have explicitly stated what assumptions and methods I've used in my contributions. And I am telling you, I do not run OMB. I do not know the processes. I don't have access to OMB. I don't know what OMB paid police pension.
So you don't know. Okay, so I have to now ask the pension fund if they've already utilized this and without an approval by the Board of Trustees.
We don't have anything on record indicating that there have been changes, but we will look further into it.
Okay, if you can, please give me an answer whether OMB has utilized and given you money based on these newer assumption methods that have not been voted on by this Board of Trustees. If you could get that to me as soon as possible, I'd like to know about it. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to make a recommendation.
Yeah, Joe, hi, this is Cindy. I think just from a logistical matter, these changes and assumptions were not slated to go into effect until next fiscal year, which would be July 1. So there wouldn't have been any changes up until this point. However, and I'm not sure what the employer contribution rates are to the agencies, to the NYPD, with respect to what will be coming out as employer contributions starting in July of this year. So, I'm not quite sure where, I understand what your question is. I'm just not sure that any of us here, even the pension fund at this point, knows what's going to happen come July 1.
Well, July 1 is only a few weeks away, so I would assume that, as others have stated, work is already being done. Right?
Joe,
Yes.
I think that this is a really good point, and maybe Cindy and Phil can remind the administration that there is legislation pending in Albany that extends the AAR at 7%. And so 7% is the number that they should only be using amounts that include the 7%, not another number, because if they use the other number, they're going to be breaking the law.
I agree with you on that. I believe there's only one AIR in the law. And
okay,
despite whatever
wait, hold on. One at
Hold
a
on,
time.
Cindy, I was talking. Despite whatever memos that have come before this board, whether from the actuary or from the law department, and as I've been told by the law department, there's been no change with regards to the rubric of laws that this pension fund operates under. I believe that there is one AIR in the law, and to the extent that people think that modification without approval of this Board of Trustees, I think is outside the law. I honestly believe that. So I agree with you on that. If there is anything of state, it should be on the current AIR, and I think I should be getting memos with recalculations based on that, because that has not, any other assumption and method has not been approved by this Board of Trustees. So
that's a good point.
Right,
Yeah,
Joe,
I
this
agree,
is Cindy.
Joe.
I just want to say
Can I suggest that this board resolve to request that the actuary recalculate the 2021 and 2022 employer contributions based on an AIR of 7%?
I agree with that, and I would make that motion that we have a roll call based on what's currently on the agenda, which is the fiscal year 2021 employee contribution to police based on the assumptions and methods that we have not voted on. And then I would request a motion that the actuary recalculate based on the prior assumptions and methods that have been approved by the Board of Trustees.
Yes, and
So
to
that's my
specify,
motion.
and to specify, could that recalculation be for the final 21 employer contribution and the initial 22 employer contribution?
Okay, so we're putting a lot on the record right now, and people are having trouble trying to keep track of it. So why don't we do this? There's a memorandum in front of the board regarding the fiscal year 2021 employee contribution to police, which, in my opinion, is based on an assumption and methods that has not been approved by this Board of Trustees. So I would take a roll call vote on that.
Okay, Joe, this is Cindy. Could I make an amendment to the motion that that vote be contingent on the General Assembly in Albany approving the 7% actuarial assumed rate of return?
No.
I don't operate on the state legislature. I operate on the Board of Trustees.
I understand.
If we want to request the state legislature.
Whoa, hold on, wait, hold on.
Hold on, Cindy. If we want to request the state legislature to continue the ARR, that's a separate issue. We have to vote on what we vote as boards of trustees. So the fiscal year employee contribution, I request, why don't we do that? We get that off the record right now. I'm requesting a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
Right, but Joe, I don't think you understand. My point is that the board doesn't set the AIR, the General Assembly and the Senate in Albany sets the assumed interest rate for, according to the law, according to what I think the law department has said. So right now in the law, the assumed rate of return is currently 7%. And it's our understanding that the UFT has introduced legislation in Albany that was passed by the Senate and is now being considered to maintain the AIR of 7% for 2 more years.
No,
my request on the motion is to amend Sherry's memo to say that it is contingent on the change of the AIR in Albany, which is the only body that can change the AIR. That was just my point.
So Cindy.
One second. I'm sorry. We just want to ask one question of you. Go ahead, Raj.
Just one point of clarification. The current AIR, as I understand it, and the law department can correct me if I'm wrong, is good till the end of this fiscal year. So what would be the basis for that amendment, since the current statutory AIR, which is good till June 30th, which would apply to fiscal year 21, already says it's 7.0% AIR. So what would be the basis of inserting that change?
This is Susanna. Can I speak? Before Cindy made her suggestion for the amendment, I made a suggestion, which is we formally request, which has been done at other boards, the actuary to recalculate the AIR for 21 at 7%. Because right now we have a fictitious number at 6.95% that we can't use. Correct. So Sherry said that it takes a while for her staff to make that calculation. So I think it's imperative that we ask the actuary to recalculate the number. So after the bill passes in Albany and the fiscal year comes to an end, we have a number that we can use.
So I agree with that, Susanna. So I think the best way is to vote down what's on the agenda and then request that a new resolution by the board that it be recalculated on the 7% and on assumptions and methods that have been approved by this board. I think that's the way to go. So I'll do my original motion, which is let's have a roll call vote currently on what's on the agenda, which is the final fiscal year 2021 employee contribution to police. And I request a roll call vote on that.
Second. Okay, PBA?
PBA votes no.
DEA? No. SBA?
No.
LBA?
We're gonna abstain.
DEA?
You say CA or DEA?
CEA, Captain,
We're gonna abstain.
Mayor,
Mayor's office.
representing the mayor?
Cindy, Mayor?
Is she on
No,
It's not.
yes, we vote yes.
Commissioner of Finance?
Yes.
Did you hear me? The mayor voted yes.
Yeah, I got
Yes,
it.
we got that, thank you. Controller
No.
and the police commissioner?
No.
Okay, so the motion does not carry.
Okay, now, with regards to a new resolution by this board, that the final 2021 employer contribution to police be recalculated by the actuary based on the 7% AIR and assumptions and methods that have been approved by this board of trustees. I make that motion on the table, and I request a roll call vote.
So the,
Kenny says second.
okay, second, thank you, Kenny. So the motion is to
Recalculate at
recalculate.
7% and on the assumptions and methods that the board has approved.
Okay, PBA,
PBA votes yes.
DEA,
Yes.
SBA,
Yes.
LBA,
Yes.
CEA,
Yes.
Mayor,
Can I ask for a 5-minute recess so we can check with our principal?
Might want to ask the controller.
okay, controller,
Yes.
I think PC.
no,
She's asking for 5 minutes. The vote was already started, so that's all.
okay, police commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner votes yes.
and
So the
Commissioner
mayor-
of Finance.
Commissioner of Finance? You need 5 minutes also?
I'm in the same boat with Cindy.
Okay, they need 5
Why
minutes.
don't you guys just abstain?
No,
no.
let's give them the 5 minutes. Yeah, let them get the 5 minutes. I
Okay,
think
I'm
they're-
gonna pause the recording and we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
An abstention is an abstention's a no vote. Thank you.
What?
What did you say?
We're not.
I'm ready.
Okay.
You want me to
Do
write
you
that?
want to finish off the,
Yeah, to finish off the vote.
okay, Mayor,
Okay.
Mayor votes?
No.
and Commissioner
No.
of Finance? All right, the motion,
All right, Phil Duke said no.
okay, the motion carries.
So I have a question to the law department now. And I need an opinion with regards to if the actuary does not come back in a prompt enough time before the legislature breaks, what happens with the contributions? Law department?
Yeah, I would have to discuss that internally, Joe. I don't know what happens with the contributions, but I think that, Nicole, do you have thoughts, or Kevin, about how that works?
So I'm gonna ask Stanley. I'm gonna ask Stanley to talk about that, what he thinks happens. Stanley?
So, just administratively, usually we base the final employer contribution, to calculate the true-up amount in June. That payment for the employer contribution occurs on the 15th, around the middle of the month. The question would be, if we don't have a final employer contribution figure, what would June's contribution be? And also, the next fiscal year, how would we start processing the employer contribution starting in July, middle of July as well? So the question, I guess, would go to the law department to see how we would go ahead and handle this situation.
So that's, Marta, can you address that now?
I cannot address that now. I would have to take that back to the office, and admittedly, this is a case of first impression, Joe.
Well, I appreciate that. And the only thing I would say is, based on what I'm hearing, it becomes more of a time is of the essence kind of thing. So while it may be on the fly kind of routine, we really have to get it on the fly. And I understand your office has some technological difficulties, but this may mean some overtime in order to get an answer to the trustees and to the city.
Understood, Joe.
Okay. All right. So you have my reso on the record,
Not yet. I'm typing it. I will share my screen.
which we voted on already, but
Well, let's make sure that this is what everybody just share. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Trying to do this as
Good thing I'm not doing it. We'd be ordering dinner.
That may still occur.
okay. The chief actually submitted a final for it.
You're on the executive Jeff Ward. Oh, yeah, they are.
3 o'clock.
We also need Nicole, the current assumptions and methods that have to be approved by the Board of Trustees. That happened. Right.
Go come back.
Was it 2019, right?
Board of Trustees request the chief actuary to calculate the assumptions.
I'm specifically going to say.
Using the
Goal is to the watchful eye of senior trustee.
All right, does anyone have any objections to the reso that's on the screen? Okay.
Yeah, we're just gonna review it real quick.
Is there a memorandum?
Okay, I think that pretty much encompasses what we have requested on the record. So that we have voted for. And
Nicole, can you circulate that resolution to all the trustees so that we'll have a copy of it for our files?
Absolutely. As soon as Kevin signs it, we'll scan it and send it to the board, and we'll send this to Chief Actuary's office as the basis for the request.
Okay.
Great.
And that was items, that is the final item that we've dealt with on pages 58 to 64. And I believe it would. Cindy did vote. They say voted no. No. Yeah. Her and the Commissioner of Finance. I believe the same issue is also with the preliminary fiscal year 2022. So given what the record that we've made on the prior memorandum, I also request a roll call vote on this preliminary fiscal year 2022 employer contribution to police, and given all the prior arguments that we've made. So I'd like a roll call vote on that.
All right.
Second.
Second, okay.
Oh, hold on, 1 second.
One moment. We
Just
have.
Joe,
So
Joe, it's Chris. Can we just clarify what we're voting on now? Is this the same
Okay,
resolution in 2022?
So it's my understanding that this is the preliminary for next year, but then this is also based on the assumptions and methods that has not been approved by this Board of Trustees. And it's also based on a 6.9% AIR that was also not approved by the Board of Trustees. Now, we also need to know who.
Yeah.
By the way, who's introducing this memorandum also?
That will be myself. I'll be introducing this memo.
So this is the mayor's office introducing
And
this
I believe
also.
Phil will be seconding it.
Okay.
Finance.
All right, so this is I've requested a roll call vote on this, given the arguments that we've already presented. So a request for a roll call vote on this?
No further discussion. All right, we'll go ahead with the vote. PBA?
PBA votes no.
DEA?
No.
SBA?
No.
LBA?
I'm going to abstain.
CEA?
Abstain.
Mayor?
Yes.
Office of the Mayor, yes. Commissioner of Finance? Yes. Controller?
No.
And Police Commissioner?
No.
All right, motion does not carry to approve.
So now I request that there be a new resolution regarding this preliminary fiscal year 2022 employee contribution, based on the arguments that we have made, that this should be recalculated by
Joe, it's in this resolution
Okay,
that
and I
passed.
just want to make sure that that we're addressing it on the record also. That it's also based on the 7% AIR, and that any assumptions and methods that have been approved and voted on by this Board of Trustees. And I believe that resolution is on the table also.
So this is the reso that passed. Do you want to read it into the record?
Yes, I'd like to read it in the record. So this is I think we already voted on both items.
This resolution already passed.
Okay, so this is the resolution that we have requested, and it's on the record and has passed already. That whereas the Chief Actuary of the City of New York has submitted a final employer contribution for fiscal year 2021 and a preliminary employer contribution for fiscal year 2022, utilizing an actuarial interest rate of 6.9% and assumptions and methods as proposed in its memorandum dated January 6, 2021. And whereas the New York City Administrative Code 13-638.2 sets the AIR, and whereas the current AIR is 7% and set to expire June 30th, 2021, and whereas the current assumptions and methods were approved by this board on March 13th, 2019, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees request the Chief Actuary recalculate the fiscal year 2021 and preliminary fiscal year 2022 employee contributions using an AIR of 7% and the assumptions and methods approved by this board. So that's the resolution that we have approved, and that being done, said and done, I make a motion now that we leave the public session and go into executive session for purposes of discussing disability benefits.
Wait, do you need to vote on that? Do you need a roll call vote on that?
No, that was already voted on.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay? All right, so the motion is second. So we are now in executive session. Does anyone need a minute or two?
We have to exit this. Please use the link that you were sent for the executive session. We're going to close this one and open the other room.
Does Yafa, the stenographer, need a break?
No, I'm good.
Lunch.
This is lunch already.
Lunch is here, don't worry. The break of lunch is here now.